Hey everybody, I'm Cheryl Swift, Duchess of Rock and Roll. I'm here today with Lee Tasjan, whose name I've said wrong probably 300 times. Did I say it right today?
You did.
Yes!
Nailed it.
Every now and again I get something right. So, thank you so much for doing this today.
Absolutely. Thanks.
We're at an undisclosed location in Nashville.
Very top secret.
This is top secret, man. I'm telling no one where we're at. So, I'm so excited you were able to do this today. How we met is kind of funny. Yeah. So a couple months ago, when was that? June, maybe?
I think June. Yeah.
June. So I'm in town and I get this email, or I don't know how it came to me. Do you want to be an extra in a video? And I show up and I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Aaron. And so Aaron and I did a video. Tell them about what was going on that day.
We were making a video for one of the songs on my record, Karma for Cheap, and so the concept is probably better explained if you see the video,
right?
But we were shooting it in a bowling alley over in Donaldson, Tennessee, and we wanted real people in the video, so we put out some calls to action, and you happen to be one of the fine folks who showed up that day.
Yes. You'll have to see the video when it comes out, but ironically, I'm not really into hugging people, and we hugged for what seemed like maybe 5 minutes straight.
Probably.
And I was really glad you smelled good. I was like, God, I hope my perfume smells good to him too. I was like, I told my husband, I go, you're never going to believe what I did today. I had to hug someone for like 5 minutes to get a video shoot in. He was like, oh, and you didn't fall apart? I was like, I actually was okay with it. He smelled good. It's the simple things in life,
That's
right?
The olfactory sense is
it's really important.
Yeah.
There's a couple artists I know who sniff people when they meet them, and I always find that interesting. I don't really do that. If it's something I like, I'll notice it. Or dislike. But if
Tough
it's
not to notice that.
Right, the dislike's hard to run around. You know, like it's hard to get around. Anyway, I've gone off track already. So, Aaron has a new album out, Karma for Cheap.
Yes.
It's brilliant, in my opinion.
Thanks, Cheryl.
I love it. I bought the album, and you kindly signed it for me. And I've been playing it. I love vinyl. Don't you love it?
I do. I have a big record collection over there.
I
do most of my listening on vinyl.
Here in the undisclosed location?
Yep.
Yeah. I love it. There's just something about it. How do you feel about, in this day and age, with all the auto-tuned sounds of the world compared to the vinyl sounds of this world?
You know, I'm okay with auto-tune because I think you can use it musically.
Yes.
And I think that some people have figured out interesting ways to use it. It's not something it's not a sound that I find myself attracted to very often.
Right.
So I appreciate the vibe of it, but I think I prefer just people singing and playing whatever's in their heart at that moment.
Right. I do too, and I love some of the new albums. I think I think the industry, you could speak to this, had swung so far to the auto-tune, and now we're swinging back to a little bit more authentic. Like if you listen to an old Rolling Stones album, there's crackles and cracks in the studio, and you can hear someone in the background every now and again. Hey, you'll hear these little things that now sometimes get edited out in post-production.
Sure.
And I love that stuff.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. Yeah, I think, you don't want to be too precious about music, or any sort of art really, because I think that's where you start the line of pretension starts to get drawn, so I think it's best to kind of take all of it with a grain of salt.
Correct. I agree. That's why I love live music so much. And something that I find interesting, and we were talking about a while ago, is live shows and the way that people interact. As an artist, how is that for you when you're playing? How do you react if you have a room where you have the attention versus where you're having to fight for attention?
Well, I think, I just kind of go up there and play the show and try to focus on just being in my body in those moments and enjoying the place that I'm in mentally and physically at that moment,
Right.
So a lot of the outside stuff, for the most part, I don't notice most of the time. Sometimes it can really be a challenge to overcome if somebody's being particularly vocal, or we had some interesting shows sometimes like that on the Social Detour, because sometimes I think like it really didn't have anything to do with anything other than just maybe the fact that like I would be playing an acoustic guitar, or not that Social Distortion doesn't occasionally do that, but those people are there to see their band, and it's up to you to go and give them something to draw them in. And sometimes, it can be really difficult to reach people. So, in those moments, you try to handle it,
best you can.
Well, I think true love is the recognition and tolerance of weakness, in others. So I think if you really want to, walk your talk in those moments, you find ways to, have some empathy for whoever is, heckling or whatever they're doing.
Right, right. And speaking of empathy, one of the things that I adore about you, besides having, started a friendship with you over the last couple months, is the way you speak to love and peace and who you be as a human being. Is that? Let's talk about that for a few minutes. Your thoughts on how things are going in peace and love.
I think there's always it's always a challenge to present that idea to people in a way that they're going to take it to heart. It's a great thing to think about, and I think it gives us all a real good feeling inside when you see it in action. Even if it's just on a TV show or in a movie or something. But it can be a tough sell for people, and I think you just have to be, if you're a person who that's where you tend to find your joy, I think you just have to kind of be relentless about acting it and being it. And just sort of, hope that however it comes across to people that they can find some sort of goodness in it for themselves,
Yes.
So I think, as a society, that's the challenge. How do we make something that, while is a beautiful and very powerful notion in its own way, hasn't traditionally been viewed, by society as a heroic place to be coming from. And we like heroes, we like celebrities, we like the larger than life things. And even though conceptually speaking, peace and love is definitely larger than life, it's maybe so vast and so all-encompassing that it's tough to even understand the scope of it.
I agree. I always try to be, and it's interesting your perspective when you're saying that about people talking at shows. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, because I go to a lot of shows.
Sure.
I mean, it's shocking,
yeah.
And I get really irritated, and sometimes I have to practice like love, because like you said about empathy, like, because sometimes when people are annoying me or doing things I may not agree with, I have to stop and think, but what is their perspective and their perception?
Right.
Because while this concert is important to me,
Right.
or this song is important to me, they may not care.
Right.
And so I always try to seek to understand what's happening in another, such that I can still be with them.
Right.
And it's, as a fan or as a musician or as a blogger, you never quite know when you walk into a room what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's just an interesting place to be. And I never thought people would know my name. Like, people will talk to me now and I'm like, whoa. And then I look at all you guys and I just have much more respect for what it must be like to every night have people want to be around you. And I think you handle that well. I mean, most of the musicians I hang out with do handle that well. But it's a challenge. But I like how you said that about seeking to understand what it is they might be going through, as opposed to flying into a rage, which is something I might do. But I don't really like getting hit or have beers thrown on me, so I try to seek to understand. Switching gears. So I've heard people talk that you're cosmic. How do you feel about that moniker?
I think it fits in certain ways. I certainly space out a lot mentally. So in a very literal sense, it's kind of true.
Yes.
I think it's interesting that for so long, music was just a few things. It was country, or it was rock and roll, or it was blues, or it was jazz.
Right. There's like 5 majors.
And that's all there was, and you may have had artists who fit the mold of multiple roles, like a Johnny Cash.
Right, who could do both, right, or a couple of them,
rock and roll,
right.
or country, even though originally he was really considered rock and roll.
Exactly.
But I think, he embodied all these characteristics of so many things, and really ended up being more thought of as a country singer, even though I've always just thought of him as a singer. He's
right,
one of those,
not genre-fying him.
Exactly.
And that's funny, because this week has been very heavy talk on the interwebs. Americana Awards.
Right.
And some people won, and then some people were talking about Americana. I kind of like that they have Americana Fest, because it lets a lot of different people who now people can't figure out how to put into a category be and have awards. I don't really have an opinion one way or another about the word Americana.
Right.
But, as you said, I see it all as rock and roll, mostly. That's just what my... rock and roll and country. But really, one isn't one without the other. It's a Pangea effect.
Absolutely.
It's all the same... 3 chords in the truth. You're making music.
Yeah.
Your self-expression, people try to describe as cosmic because it's unique. And I love that about you. Because it's... I gotta be honest, the first time I saw you live, I'd heard your music. It was a totally different experience seeing you live. Because you're such a great guitar player. And I was like, wow, it comes across so much for me. Seeing you live changed my whole perspective. Because you're such a great guitarist. And I love your lyrics. So then it was an amalgamation, and I was like, well, I'll go with cosmic, but I see you as rock and roll.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think, to me, cosmic music was an extension of rock and roll. I think to me the 4 forms of American music are rock and roll, country, blues, and jazz.
Yes.
And there are tons and tons of subgenres that operate within the confines of those various places, Americana being one of them, and cosmic being another one to me. So, I prefer to think of all music using that, all American music, using that sort of series of definitions,
right,
or terms, if you will. And I think mostly we fall, if you're thinking of it in that way, I think mostly we fall under the category of rock and roll.
Oh, for sure.
I've done things certainly on past albums and even on this one that could be considered country-esque, but to me, that's the same thing as the Beatles singing Act Naturally, or the Stones doing Faraway Eyes,
of
or
course.
Any of that.
Well,
kind
Robert
of stuff.
Plant and Lucinda Williams, please read the letter.
Sure, absolutely.
I just saw Robert Plant sing that song Sunday night. I might have wept.
Yeah.
Because I got to see Robert Plant.
Yeah.
2,300 people. That's once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's so now. It's so now. All of it.
Yeah.
And I kind of love it. I kind of love that sometimes people are like, what do you consider that? I'm like, does it really matter in the end?
Right.
Do you like it? And will you go see that show? That's important to me.
I agree with that. I think a lot of times, people are operating from, because there's so much music now, and people's music of knowledge tends to be very specific. It doesn't tend to be particularly broad. So I might reference something to them that they've never heard of, or be describing music to them using a reference in my own head that they're completely unfamiliar with.
Correct. It happens all the time with me and talking about, because I love it all. I could be talking about Nelly and then you and then Robert Plant and then a band from the UK. But most of my friends, they don't necessarily have that scope.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so it can be...
No offense to my friends, by the
way. So it can be a challenge just to talk about it, really, and that's why I feel like, music journalism ends up struggling a lot nowadays because, really all that you're left with are, if you like this, you'll like that type of comparisons. And while those are great maybe for surface level, just trying to find some music that you might be interested in, I don't think that that's the way that most people who really love music consume music. Right. I think it's much more by accident. So I think, if there was a way for, people to start talking about music, and I realize the reason that they're doing this is because they're on the internet and they're trying to use terms that are going to get people to click on the story. And
sometimes
there's not a big reason for somebody to click on something that says Aaron Lee Tasjan, but if it says, Willie Nelson, if someone was trying, in other words, someone was trying to say, Aaron Lee Tasjan channels Willie Nelson on new album or something, that would be something maybe that somebody would click on because
they would see Willie and think, hey, why wouldn't I?
So
or like you just went on tour with Social Distortion.
Yep.
So then you get a whole new group of people who wouldn't have necessarily seen you as an artist. And one of the rules I have, long before I did the blog, was I don't look up openers. Even if I see their name, I don't go listen to their music. Because I want to be no opinion walking in.
Right.
And I have met so many people who I now call friends by just being open-minded enough to walk in. Because let's say someone were to hear one of your songs that's the acoustic, chill you.
Sure.
They pull up Spotify or something.
Yeah.
And then they show up. They don't know that you're this, like that you're going to flatline them with all this guitar playing. Do you see? Like, even if that's the song someone chooses,
absolutely.
If you're playing Memphis Rain and being chill, and then they walk in and you're rocking out,
right?
It's like, well, wait a minute. So I like to walk in and just take it in,
right?
And not everybody's willing to do that because a lot of people talk through openers.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I'm open to it, and I love it when friends are like, well, I'll go check out that new artist with you. Because how else are you going to grow your music library?
Sure.
And it's been cool the last couple of years, like Rolling Stone and Rolling Stone Country will do the 10 artists to watch lists.
Yep.
And your album, both the Silver
Tears,
Tears,
no worries,
and now Karma for Cheap have gotten a lot of social media and media attention, and that's got to be thrilling for you.
Oh, it's great. It feels really good. When you feel like, and it's interesting too, because I've seen so many various explanations of what both of those records mean to people, through the press and stuff like that, which is really cool. That's what you hope for, and when you make a record,
Right.
I think it'd be one thing for me to have a particularly, a lot of artists' records in the media are oftentimes driven by a really gripping narrative that they have for the record that really the story behind it draws you into wanting to listen to it. I feel really great about the fact that I've never focused on making a narrative for a record. I've just always made records that in one way or another
Grab
people have been
someone's
able
attention.
to connect with
Yes.
and feel like they wanted to share. So that makes me feel really great, because I love feeling connected with people through music.
Right, and you're very good at that, I think. I mean, I love the storytelling, I think it's fabulous, because there's been a couple incarnations of your career. You were, you could say it, I mean, you were with New York Dolls for a while.
Yep.
That's pretty fabulous.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That was a cool chapter.
Yeah.
If I do say so for you.
It was brief, but it was really, really fun, and I learned a ton, and I just am super grateful to those guys for, letting me be a part of their amazing world for a brief moment in time.
And now, so you just finished up the tour with Social Distortion. You did your own tour. And now what's coming next? Is there more touring coming up?
There is. There's some festivals and some things coming up overseas that we're going to be doing.
Ooh, where are you headed?
We're
UK
going to be all over.
Okay.
Over there. Which is always, so much fun. I love traveling.
They love it over there. They absorb it. They crave it. It's almost like here people don't necessarily. They're like they show up, from what I've heard.
It seems to be the case.
Yes.
They have a great affinity for American music in certain parts of the world over there, and it's wonderful to get to experience that as an artist and as a music fan too. So we're looking forward to going over there. We'll be touring more in the U.S. In November.
Keep my schedule clear.
And we'll have we're going to do some special things at the end of the year here in Nashville that we'll be announcing pretty soon.
You heard that there will be an announcement here. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That all of those things I'm really excited about. I'm continuing to write songs and be in the studio.
Nice.
Do
you record mostly here in Nashville?
I do these days. Previous to Karma for Cheap, I had recorded all of my work in either New York or California.
Okay.
And this last record was the first one that I made here, and I got to use a variety of studios that were all really awesome. I'm gonna be working on whatever's next, probably here in Nashville again. Yeah.
Who produced Karma for Cheap? I don't actually know that.
I co-produced it with a couple of guys, actually. A guy named Jeff Trott, who people would know. He co-wrote a lot of really great Sheryl Crow songs. If It Makes You Happy.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I know his name, but that's why I thought it might be him.
Yep. And then my other buddy Greg Latimer,
whose name I also know.
he did the first Albert Hammond Jr. record, and has made some really great albums with a band from here in town that I really like called Repeat Repeat.
Okay.
He's just a crazy, weird dude like me, and we hit it off. And
you're the good kind of weird, though.
Thanks. We get together and madness ensues.
Right, yes. That's awesome. Well, the album's fabulous. I'm thrilled that I get to be in the video. Like I think I'm in one other music video, one TV special. You know,
Cool.
it's fun to have friends in the music world and get to do cool things. Well, I love Karma for Cheap. I usually have a copy of the album, but I didn't bring it with me to Nashville. It's at home in the special signed cool collection. I too have a wall of
memorabilia.
I have a wall. Oh, I have a whole. Yeah, people would die. Don't come to my house and look at my basement, but people walk in and they're like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, At some point, I'm gonna have to start gifting it. Like at some point, it's gonna have to go to people super fans of super, you know. But I always have people sign my name on the albums, you know. I'm like, I don't sell my stuff. If anything, I give it away. Or if somebody's doing an auction, sometimes I'll give up a piece of my cool memorabilia.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm just thrilled that I got to meet you, that we met in such an interesting way.
Yeah.
And that you were here this week and made time to see me.
Absolutely. So
you can find Aaron you could tell them where they can find you on social media?
I'm Aaron Lee Tasjan, at Aaron Lee Tasjan on everything. Or AaronLeeTasjan.com. That's awesome. Well, I'm Cheryl Swift, Duchess of Rock and Roll. This is Aaron Lee Tasjan at an undisclosed location in Nashville. And we've got things to do this afternoon, so we wish you all peace, love, and rock and roll. Bye, everybody.